47 missed calls. That's what my phone looked like at 3:02 a.m. 47. And beneath them a spreadsheet. 14 pages. Total at the bottom. $83,247. I was barefoot when I opened it. White chiffon dress. Sand between my toes. Indian Ocean stretching out in front of me like something too peaceful to belong to my life. And meanwhile in Portland, Oregon, an empty ballroom. 200 chairs. And a family waiting for a bride who wasn't coming. I didn't always disappear. For 7 years I was the infrastructure. Not the daughter. Not the niece. Not the cousin. The infrastructure. If something broke, I fixed it. If someone needed money, I transferred it. If there was a gap, I filled it. My mother, Diane Collier, made $54,000 a year and carried herself like she managed a trust fund. She didn't scream. She didn't threaten. She sighed. She paused. She let disappointment hang in the air like humidity. Guilt was her currency, and she spent it generously. Then there was Aunt Lorraine. Lorraine didn't ask for money directly. She didn't need to. She had that matriarch energy, the kind that makes people sit up straighter at Thanksgiving. She specialized in subtle class shame. Oh, Whitney's doing very well for herself. Translation: so she can afford it. She would thank my mother publicly for things I paid for. And I would smile. Because correcting her would be awkward. And then there was Megan. Cousin Megan. Instagram golden child. Curated brunches. Filtered beach photos. Champagne captions. $31,000 in credit card debt. But online. She performed wealth like it was inherited. In reality it was borrowed. Sometimes from Visa. Sometimes from me. There was a pattern to how they got to me. I call it the three-phase playbook. Phase 1: tears. Something urgent. Something unfair. Something that wasn't supposed to happen. Phase 2: cold shoulder. If I hesitated, the warmth disappeared. Calls shortened. Text slowed. Phase 3: the conference call. Mother. Aunt Lorraine. Sometimes Megan. Whitney, we just think family helps family. And somehow by the end of it I was logging into my banking app. Again. Here's what family help looked like. Basement remodel, $12,000. Megan's car, $8,500. Tyler's certification program, $7,200. Holidays over 5 years, $24,500. Grandpa's funeral, $6,800. Random emergencies, $20,047. I didn't even round the numbers. I had receipts. Total, $83,247. Return investment, zero gratitude. Not even accidental gratitude. The thing no one understands about being the dependable one is this. You don't feel generous. You feel invisible. Like a wire transfer with a pulse. Thanksgiving 2023 was when it finally clicked. I paid $3,200 for catering because it would mean so much to your mother. Dinner was beautiful. Candles. Crystal. Turkey carved perfectly. Halfway through dessert, Aunt Lorraine stood up. She raised her glass. To Diane, she said warmly, for always holding this family together. Applause. My mother smiled modestly. I smiled too. Across the table, Nathan didn't. Nathan was new. Nathan watched. Later in the kitchen while I was loading dishes I paid for, he said quietly, "Did anyone thank you?" I shrugged. It's not about that. But it was. It was exactly about that. He was the first person who noticed. The first external witness. March 12th was the day everything shifted. I was at work when the email came through. Subject line. Wedding coordination confirmation. I opened it casually. And then I stopped breathing. Whitney has agreed to this arrangement and is excited to celebrate jointly. Jointly. With Megan. My wedding. Shared. Apparently I had consented. Apparently I was thrilled. Apparently I just hadn't been informed. I scrolled down. Venue modification request submitted. Catering adjustment approved. Guest list expanded. 2 brides. 1 magical night. Signed Diane Collier. Not me. I called her immediately. She answered on the 3rd ring like she had been waiting. You saw it, she said. Mom. What is this? A pause. Then the sigh. Don't be selfish, Whitney. Selfish. After $83,247. After years of underwriting family stability. After never once asking for repayment. Selfish. Megan can't afford her own wedding right now, she continued. This just makes sense. Makes sense. That phrase. That weaponized practicality. You weren't even going to use the whole ballroom, she added. Like space was the issue. Like ownership was negotiable. That night I opened a blank spreadsheet. I copied every transaction. Every Venmo. Every wire. Every holiday invoice. When I finished, I added one more column. Money spent on Whitney. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed $0. That was the moment I stopped being the helper and became the historian. This wasn't about sharing a wedding. It wasn't about logistics. It wasn't about generosity. It was about ownership. They assumed compliance. They assumed I would fund it. They assumed I would smile. They assumed I would show up. 47 missed calls later. They finally realized. I didn't. I didn't confront her right away. I sat with it first. Because sometimes the shock isn't loud. It's quiet. It hums under your skin while your brain tries to rearrange reality into something that makes sense. My mother had emailed my venue. Not suggested. Not asked. Impersonated. She had written, Whitney has agreed to this arrangement. As if my consent were a technicality. As if my wedding were a community asset. When I finally called her back, she answered with that steady, measured tone she uses when she thinks she's being reasonable. You're overreacting, she said. I didn't agree to this, I replied. A pause. Then gently, like she was correcting a child. Don't be selfish. Selfish. The word landed differently this time. Because now I had the spreadsheet open in front of me. 14 pages. Line by line. Year by year. $83,247. I scrolled slowly. Basement remodel. Car down payment. Certification program. Holiday catering. Funeral costs. Emergency dental surgery. Random just until next month transfers. And then that new column I'd added. Money spent on Whitney, $0. For the first time, I wasn't looking at the numbers emotionally. I was looking at them structurally. This wasn't generosity. This was infrastructure. And infrastructure isn't loved. It's used. The real shift happened when I called Rosa. Rosa isn't dramatic. She's an attorney. Precision is her love language. I didn't start with feelings. I started with facts. My mom emailed my venue pretending to be me. Rosa didn't react immediately. She asked questions. Did she explicitly state she was you? Yes. Did she confirm consent? Yes. Is that in writing? Yes. Silence. Then she said something that changed everything. This isn't family tension. This is misrepresentation of consent. The words felt clinical. Almost too clean for something that hurt this much. But that's what I needed. Not emotion. Definition. I stopped arguing with my mother after that. Instead, I started documenting. I saved every email thread. I downloaded call logs. I took screenshots of text messages. I forwarded everything to a private folder labeled simply March. If they wanted to treat my wedding like a logistical merger, I would treat it like a contract dispute. The venue contract had a clause. 7.2. Client reserves the right to cancel or modify without penalty prior to 90 days. I was still within the window. I called the venue coordinator, Jill. My voice didn't shake. I did not authorize a joint wedding, I said clearly. Please revert all modifications and cancel the booking. She hesitated. Your mother seemed very certain. She was. I paused. But she is not the bride. There was a shift on the other end of the line. Professional tone returning. I understand, Jill said. 2 days later, $11,200 was refunded to my account. No announcement. No warning. That night, Nathan and I sat at our kitchen table with our laptops open. What do you want? He asked. Not what's practical. Not what's fair. What do you want? The question felt foreign. I opened a travel site. Maldives. Small ceremony packages. Beach at sunset. For guests. Total cost. $9,800. I stared at the number. Less than the basement remodel. Less than Megan's car. Less than 1 year of family holidays. I want this, I said quietly. Nathan smiled. Then book it. So I did. No group chat. No explanation. No countdown posts. Just confirmation emails and plane tickets. The escalation came 2 weeks later. Megan had printed invitations. 150 of them. Cream cardstock. Gold foil lettering. 2 brides. 1 magical night. I found out because Aunt Lorraine called to clarify seating. They had planned the double wedding without ever receiving my agreement. They didn't think they needed it. They assumed compliance. Assumed funding. Assumed I would eventually give in the way I always had. And for a moment I almost did. Because the playbook was activating. Phase 1. This will embarrass the family. Phase 2 cold tone. We're just disappointed. Phase 3 group call. Whitney, it's already in motion. It always came down to momentum. If they moved fast enough, I would feel guilty enough to match their speed. But something was different now. I wasn't reacting. I was observing. The call that broke me wasn't from my mother. It was from Grandma Eleanor. She didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She asked one question. Are you happy? I couldn't answer immediately. No one had asked me that in years. Not about money. Not about family obligations. Not about performance. Just me. Are you happy? My throat tightened. And I cried. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just relief. Because someone finally cared about the outcome for me. After that I stopped fighting. But not in the way they thought. I performed compliance. I smiled at the dress fitting. I nodded during venue discussions. I let Megan talk about our big day. I even complimented the floral samples. They thought I was surrendering. They relaxed. They accelerated. More deposits. More plans. More public excitement. They didn't realize I had already canceled the ballroom. They didn't realize I had already booked another country. They didn't realize I was calculating time zones. Portland would be setting up at 4 p.m. The Maldives would be saying vows at sunset. And for the first time in 7 years I wasn't funding momentum. I was redirecting it. They thought I was falling back into place. But I wasn't surrendering. I was scheduling my exit. June 14th. Portland, Oregon. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. 200 guests begin arriving at the ballroom. Women in pastel dresses. Men adjusting cufflinks. Gift bags stacked neatly on a welcome table that shouldn't have existed. There was just one problem. There was no booking. There was no bride. And there was no wedding. At exactly 4:07 p.m. Jill, the venue coordinator, stepped forward with a clipboard in her hand and a professional practice smile. I'm so sorry for the confusion, she said calmly. This event was formally canceled on March 14th under Clause 7.2 of the contract. Canceled. March 14th. 3 months earlier. A ripple moved through the crowd. Soft confusion at first. Then louder questions. My mother froze. Not dramatically. Not theatrically. Just still. Like her brain was trying to locate a version of reality where this made sense. It couldn't. Because that version didn't exist. Megan was already dressed. $4,200 worth of white satin and illusion lace. Hair sculpted. Makeup set. Mascara beginning to tremble. Call Whitney, she whispered sharply. They did. 47 times. Meanwhile, Maldives. Sunset. The air was warm but not heavy. The ocean moved slowly, like it wasn't in a hurry to get anywhere. I was barefoot. My dress cost $380. Chiffon. Simple. It moved when the wind did. 4 people were present. Nathan's parents. Grandma Eleanor. And us. No ballroom. No spectacle. No negotiations. Just the sound of water. When Nathan said his vows, his voice didn't shake. You are not anyone's ATM, he said quietly. Not dramatic. Not performative. Just true. The words landed somewhere deep. When it was my turn, I looked at him and said, You were the first person who asked what I wanted. And I meant it. We said yes at sunset. No applause. Just wind. At 7 p.m. Maldives time, I posted a photo. Simple caption. Just us. Just enough. The timing wasn't accidental. Portland was still hours behind. The chaos hadn't peaked yet. By the time guests in Oregon were refreshing their phones in confusion, the image had already begun circulating. Bare feet in the sand, orange sky behind us. Peace. Not absence. Not escape. Peace. Back in Portland, the unraveling accelerated. Guests were whispering. Some were checking social media. Some were already leaving. The florist demanded clarification. The caterer requested payment confirmation. There was no contract. No deposit. Nothing had ever been rebooked after March. Because I had canceled it before they could attach Megan to it. My mother's phone buzzed continuously. So did mine. 47 missed calls. Voicemails layered over each other. How could you do this? You embarrassed us. You ruined everything. And then the final one. You are no longer my daughter. I listened to that message sitting on the edge of the bed in our overwater villa. I expected something dramatic to happen inside me. A collapse. Crack. Guilt. Instead I felt light. Not victorious. Not cruel. Just unburdened. Because for the first time the guilt didn't land. It had nothing to attach to. At 3:12 a.m. my phone rang again. I answered. Silence on the other end. Then my mother's voice. Low. Controlled. Furious. You humiliated this family. I let her speak. I didn't interrupt. When she finished I said one thing. $83,247. Silence. I repeated it. That's how much I've contributed over 7 years. Nothing. No correction. No defense. Because numbers don't argue. They sit there. Unblinking. I never asked for repayment, I continued. I asked for respect. Her breathing shifted. But she didn't respond. Because there was nothing to say. For the first time in 7 years, the conference call guilt script didn't activate. No Aunt Lorraine. No collective pressure. No emotional override. Just silence. And silence can be clarifying. The next morning I turned my phone off. Not dramatically. Just deliberately. Nathan and I had breakfast outside. Fresh fruit. Coffee. Sunlight hitting the water. Nobody asked for anything. Nobody implied obligation. Nobody compared me to Megan. I realized something sitting there. I hadn't disappeared. I had removed access. There's a difference. They thought the wedding was leverage. They thought public pressure would force compliance. They thought momentum would overpower autonomy. But momentum only works when the person funding it continues to move. I stopped moving. And the machine stalled. Later that afternoon, Grandma Eleanor sat next to me on the beach. She didn't scold. She didn't defend them. She just squeezed my hand. They'll call this selfish, she said softly. I nodded. Was it? I asked. She looked at the water for a long moment. No, she said. It was expensive. I almost laughed. Because she understood. The cost wasn't the plane ticket. It wasn't the ballroom deposit. It was the identity shift. From compliant to autonomous. From ATM to bride. Back in Portland, explanations were being demanded. In the Maldives, vows had already been honored. 2 time zones. 2 realities. 1 decision. They thought I was surrendering. They thought I was folding under pressure. They thought they owned the narrative. But ownership requires permission. And on June 14th at sunset, I revoked it. For the first time in 7 years, the guilt didn't work. And once it stopped working, I did too. I didn't send the spreadsheet immediately. I waited 3 days. Not because I was unsure, but because timing matters. Emotions were still high. Accusations were still flying. The narrative circulating was simple and convenient. Whitney ran away. Whitney embarrassed the family. Whitney ruined Megan's wedding. I let that version breathe. And then I replaced it. On Tuesday morning at 9:14 a.m., I sent a 14-page PDF to the 24-person family group chat. No dramatic introduction. No emotional essay. Just 1 sentence. For clarity. Attachment included. Page 1 was a summary. Page 2 through 13 were receipts. Screenshots. Transfers. Dates. Descriptions. Basement remodel $12,000. Megan's car $8,500. Tyler's certification $7,200. Holiday expenses $24,500. Funeral, $6,800. Miscellaneous emergencies, $20,047. Every number matched. Every payment timestamped. The final page was simple. Money spent, $83,247. Money received, $0. Verbal thank yous documented 0. No insults. No commentary. Just math. 21 red receipts appeared within the hour. No one responded. Not my mother. Not Aunt Lorraine. Not Megan. Silence. And that silence felt different than before. This wasn't strategic silence. This was reckoning. Because once something is documented, it stops being opinion. It becomes record. By that evening, the group chat had shifted. 8 people quietly left. No announcement. Just digital exits. Aunt Linda sent me a private message. I didn't know, she wrote. I'm sorry. Short. Sincere. It was the first apology I had received that didn't include a but. Megan tried to reclaim the narrative. She posted an Instagram story. Soft lighting. Smudged mascara. Carefully framed vulnerability. Some people don't value family, she said tearfully. I just wanted love. Comments were disabled within the hour. Because screenshots had already begun circulating. Not by me. By cousins. By mutual friends. The PDF had traveled. Receipts have a way of moving faster than emotion. Within 48 hours, Megan lost 600 followers. Which, for her, felt catastrophic. But the real shift wasn't digital. It was personal. Derek, her fiancé, started asking questions. Not accusatory. Just confused. You knew she didn't agree, right? He asked her. I know this because Tyler told me. The engagement didn't end. But it paused. Therapy was suggested. Which, in our family, is practically revolutionary. Aunt Lorraine called me on the 4th day. Her voice was tight. You didn't have to humiliate us, she said. I took a breath. I didn't humiliate anyone, I replied calmly. I sent numbers. She exhaled sharply. You made your mother look terrible. No, I said. The choices did that. There was a long pause. For once, she didn't have a subtle insult ready. Because subtlety doesn't survive documentation. At church that Sunday, whispers followed my mother. Not loud. Not cruel. Just different. The same women who used to praise her for raising such a generous daughter, now spoke in careful tones. Is everything okay? That must have been difficult. Translation. We saw the spreadsheet. Reputation shifts quietly. It doesn't explode. It tilts. And once it tilts, it rarely returns to its original position. Grandma Eleanor handled it differently. She didn't text. She drove to my mother's house. I raised you better, she told her. No yelling. Just disappointment. The kind that settles into walls. That conversation traveled back to me in fragments. Not defensive. Not explosive. Just heavy. For the first time, my mother wasn't controlling the room. She was explaining herself in it. And me? I stopped defending. I stopped explaining. I stopped justifying my wedding, my choices, my tone. There's a strange calm that comes when you realize the truth doesn't require performance. If someone wanted to believe I was cruel, they would. If someone wanted context, it was attached in 14 pages. I didn't need to narrate it anymore. A week later, I sent my mother a separate email. No accusation. No emotional language. Just 3 conditions. 1. Acknowledge that what you did was wrong. 2. No financial decisions or representations made on my behalf. Ever. 3. No comparisons between me and Megan. No guilt. No rewriting history. No triangulation. I didn't demand repayment. I didn't threaten estrangement. I offered structure. Boundaries are not punishments. They're terms. She didn't respond immediately. But something had shifted. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. Revenge would have been yelling. Public shaming. Humiliation. This was restructuring. For years, our family system ran on 2 things. Guilt and silence. I removed silence first. Then I removed money. Without those 2 fuels, the system sputtered. People were forced to interact without leverage. And that made everyone uncomfortable. Especially the ones who benefited most. Tyler called me quietly one evening. I didn't realize how much you carried, he said. Neither did I. Not until I put it in a spreadsheet. Numbers don't exaggerate. They don't dramatize. They don't forget. They simply exist. And once they existed publicly, power shifted. Not loudly, not violently, but permanently. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was correction. And correction doesn't scream. It stabilizes. For the first time in years, I wasn't the family's emergency fund. I wasn't the backup plan. I wasn't the silent sponsor. I was simply separate. And once the money stopped, the truth got loud. After the spreadsheet, everything got quieter. Not fixed. Not healed. Just quieter. The chaos burned fast. The arguments slowed. The group chat stopped buzzing every 5 minutes. And then something unexpected happened. People started choosing sides. Not dramatically. Subtly. Tyler was the first to call. He didn't start with a defense. He didn't start with excuses. He said, "I'm sorry." Just that. "No, if you felt hurt." "No, but Mom was stressed." "I should have seen it," he added. "I didn't realize how much you were carrying." His voice sounded different. Smaller. Honest. Then he did something no one else had done. "I want to pay you back." The offer caught me off guard. Not because I needed the money, but because repayment meant acknowledgement. I took a breath. "I don't want your money," I told him gently. "I want you to stop participating in the system." Silence. Then, "Okay." And I believed him. A few weeks later we had dinner. Not a holiday spectacle. Not a catered event. Just 6 of us at a small neighborhood restaurant. Total bill, $47. Everyone paid their own share. No assumptions. No silent glances toward me when the check arrived. It sounds small, but it wasn't. It was the first family dinner of my adult life that didn't run on invisible labor. No speeches. No performative gratitude. Just normal. And normal felt revolutionary. Not everyone stayed. Aunt Lorraine stopped speaking to me entirely. No confrontation. No announcement. Just absence. Which honestly felt consistent. Her authority depended on hierarchy. And I had stepped out of it. Megan sent a half apology 2 months later. "I'm sorry if things got out of hand." Out of hand. Like the situation was weather. Not orchestration. I didn't argue. I didn't dissect her wording. I simply replied, "I hope you're doing well." Because closure doesn't always require correction. Sometimes it requires distance. Derek remains undecided. From what I hear, therapy continued. Wedding plans paused. Resumed. Paused again. I don't ask for updates. And for the first time, I don't feel responsible for the outcome. That's the shift. Not anger. Not revenge. Release. August 2nd. My phone rang at 8:17 p.m. It was my mother. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. Her voice sounded unfamiliar. Not defensive. Not sharp. Small. "I've been thinking," she began. I didn't interrupt. "I shouldn't have done that," she said. It was wrong. The word landed heavier than I expected. Wrong. Not misunderstood. Not complicated. Wrong. There was no dramatic music swelling in the background. No cinematic reconciliation. Just quiet recognition. I didn't cry. I didn't say, "I forgive you." I said, "Thank you for saying that." Because accountability doesn't erase damage. But it does open a door. We talked for 20 minutes. Not about money. Not about Megan. About boundaries. About assumptions. About how easily family helps family. Had become code for Whitney will handle it. She didn't defend herself. She didn't rewrite history. And that mattered more than emotion. When the call ended, I sat on the couch for a long time. Processing. Because the power wasn't in humiliating her. It was in having the choice to answer the phone. Here's what I've learned. I didn't destroy my family. I removed myself from a system that ran on guilt and silence. There's a difference. When money flows quietly, it hides imbalance. When silence protects behavior, it enables it. Once I stopped funding both, the truth surfaced on its own. Some relationships survived that exposure. Some didn't. But the ones that remain, they're cleaner. Not perfect. Just honest. Nathan asked me recently if I would do it the same way again. The Maldives. The spreadsheet. The boundaries. I thought about it carefully. Yes, I said. Not because it was painless. It wasn't. There were nights I questioned myself. Moments I wondered if I had gone too far. If public documentation was too harsh. If disappearing from that ballroom was too dramatic. But every time doubt crept in, I remembered something simple. No one asked what I wanted. Until I forced the question. The most surprising part of all this isn't that my mother apologized. It's that I no longer need her to. If she continues respecting my boundaries, we'll build something new. If she doesn't, I know how to step back. That's the real victory. Not control. Not dominance. Choice. Last week, I walked past a wedding venue downtown. Huge glass windows. Crystal chandeliers. White chairs lined in perfect rows. For a moment, I pictured June 14th in Portland. The confusion. The whispers. The unraveling. Then I pictured sunset in the Maldives. Bare feet. Orange sky. For witnesses. Peace. And I realized something. I didn't vanish that day. I arrived. Arrived in my own life. In my own decisions. In a version of family that isn't transactional. The system didn't collapse because I attacked it. It collapsed because I stopped holding it up. And once the money stopped, the truth got loud. But once the truth got loud, I finally got quiet. And in that quiet, I built something better.